Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada. Jayo Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Vishwapad Paramhamsa Parijikacharya Sotra Sati Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Jai Vishwapad Paramhamsa Parijikacharya Sotra Sati Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki. Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda ki. Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki. Jai. So we are reading from Canto 7, starting a new chapter, chapter 8. Lord Narasimhadev slays the king of the demons. Exciting chapter. We're reading the first verse of the chapter, starting a new chapter today. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tat anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadya tvan Naiva guru anushikshitam Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tat anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadhyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tat anuvarnitam Jagrihur nirvadyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tad anuvarnitam Shikshitam. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tad anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadhyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tad anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadhyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam. Maturis. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tad anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadhyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam. Shri Narada Uvacha Atha Daitya Sutta Sarve Shrutva tad anuvarnitam Jagrihur niravadhyatvan Naiva gurvanushikshitam. Word to word translation. Shri Narada Uvacha. Shri Narada Muni said, Atha, thereupon, Daitya Sutta, the sons of the demons, the class friends of Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj, Sarve, all, Shrutva, hearing, tat, by him, Prahlad. Anuvarnitam, the statements about devotional life. Jagrihu, accepted. Niravadyatvat, due to the supreme utility of that instruction. Na, not. Eva, indeed. Guru anushikshitam, that which was taught by their teachers. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Translation, Narad Muni continued. All the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and took them very seriously. They rejected the materialistic instructions given by the teachers Shanda and Amarka. Purport. This is the effect of the preaching of a pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj. If a devotee is qualified, sincere and serious about Krishna consciousness, and if he follows the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, as Prahlad Maharaj did, when preaching the instructions he had received from Narada Muni, his preaching is effective. As it is said in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, verse 25, Satam prasangan mama vidya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha. If one tries to understand the discourses given by the Sat, or pure devotees, those instructions will be very pleasing to the ear and appealing to the heart. Thus, if one is inspired to take to Krishna consciousness, and if one practices the process in his life, he is surely successful in returning home back to Godhead. By the grace of Prahlad Maharaj, all his class friends, the sons of the demons, became Vaishnavas. They did not like hearing from their so-called teachers, Shanda and Amarka, who were interested only in teaching them about diplomacy, politics, economic development, and similar topics meant exclusively for sense gratification. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, this is the chapter 8 where Prahlad Maharaj has finished sharing his instructions. He's finished his preaching to his classmates, and the result has been quite wonderful. All the classmates have become devotees. And as we will continue in this chapter, we will see how all these class friends, when Shanda and Amarka, they find out that whole class is devotee now. And so the teachers are bewildered. They have no idea now what to do, and they're going to go to Hiranyakashipu to complain. But here, this particular verse is glorifying Prahlad Maharaj's transcendental teachings, his preaching work, and we are glorifying all the classmates who heard this message very sincerely, very attentively, and they immediately transformed their lives. And they immediately became devotees. And not only that they became inspired in the Krishna consciousness, but they became disinterested from all the materialistic instructions that the teachers were giving. So that's a very powerful preaching. It's very potent. And it's very glorious, Prahlad Maharaj's preaching. So Prabhupada said, so preaching is the essence, so books are the basis, utility is the principle, and purity is the force. Yeah? So these are so we can see here that Prahlad Maharaj's purity, his force, is creating a momentum and is creating such wonderful result. And all these classmates have now become devotees. And we can see that something very similar was also achieved in the case of the modern time. In the modern time, we can see there's something very similar. A glorious preaching of the kind of Prahlad Maharaj was done by Srila Prabhupada. And so, here Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, and something that's very important. Prabhupada is saying in the purport, Prahlad Maharaj, if he follows the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master as Prahlad Maharaj did, when preaching the instructions he had received from Narad Muni, his preaching is effective. So why is it that the Prahlad Maharaj instructions were effective? Why was it powerful? Because he simply repeated what he heard from Narad Muni. So he didn't have to come up with anything new. And in the preface to Bhagavad Gita, if anyone remembers, Prabhupada writes something in similar line. Does anyone know? In relation to the Bhagavad Gita as it is. He talks about how that the Bhagavad Gita as it is received so well and people are appreciating it. But he said, actually the credit is not mine, the credit is of my spiritual master. And then he says that if I have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have presented Bhagavad Gita as it is without any adulteration, without any changes. Because my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost before my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all the English editions of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambitions. But our attempt in presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So no personal agenda. This is what Krishna is saying, and this is the translation. So there is no personal agenda, there is no misinterpretations. And in that way, the as it is, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, was received very, very amazingly. And Manmohan Prabhu in a couple of classes ago also was mentioning that was so powerful, the teachings, that even the police department in New York, in US, and they're wondering, how is this happening? He says, all these people that we are trying to get them off the drugs and alcohol, and we are not able to do anything while they're increasing more and more in numbers. But this Swami, in his old age, has come and he's speaking something that is transforming these lives, these people's lives, so much so that they're no longer addicted or attracted to all these material activities, and they're becoming quite gentlemanly, quite well presented. So they're wondering, what is he doing? How is it powerful? And Prabhupada was very strong and he was very non-compromising in his presentation. So we can hear, right in the beginning, Prabhupada would introduce the topics that were very far out for the hippies and the people of the times. But he spoke out of a lot of compassion, a lot of humility. There were a lot of challenges, of course. But here Prabhupada is explaining the reason why it was successful was because he simply repeated the words of the parampara. And as long as we repeat the same words, they will have the potency, they will have the power. So, in our outreach, in our preaching, we should preach according to. Question for everyone. We should preach according to time, place and circumstances, yes. What else? Our realization, yes. Anything else? Our capacity, yeah, yeah. Guru Sadhun Shastra, yes, nice. Yeah, these are the points that I thought of also. Nice, I'm happy. We should preach according to our realization. What's the definition of realization? What does it mean? What does realization mean? What is it? You see something and you realize it? Hopefully. What's the dictionary definition of realization? I didn't check. Personal understanding? Okay, yeah. Yeah, sure. Anyone else? Anyone else knows the definition of realization? Or shall I say, the definition is Prabhupada gives it in the Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 4th chapter, for the Bhaktivedanta students. Anyway, not that I remembered, but I looked it up before the class. That's how I know it. But really nice definition of realization. Prabhupada explains it very amazingly. So here he says, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. So you are not showing off your own learning and realizations while trying to supersede the previous Acharya. Then he says, he must have a full confidence in the previous Acharya. And at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. Yet, it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. That is called realization. Okay, who remembers the main points from that? Let's see. What does realization mean? It's not our opinions. So yes, we are not screwing out the meaning, Prabhupada is explaining, but we are presenting as it was given by the previous Acharyas. What else? We have full faith in the previous Acharya. We are not doubting, oh, maybe some of the things he said must be true, but like other things I'm not too sure, so maybe let me change it. No, we have the full confidence that everything that they say is true, because what they are saying is what they have heard from their previous teachers. What else? What else? We spoke something about speaking in the times for the people of the times. What was it?
Yeah, present the same thing. Example, present people, those who are with few characters.
Yes, Prabhupada is saying that you should speak in a way, you should understand the subject matter in a way so that you are able to present it according to the times, according to the people in the audience. Yeah? And at the same time, you should be able to make it interesting. So it's not just that I'm going to just speak how I know it, but no. The audience should be able to understand it and they should find it interesting. And Albert Einstein said something very interesting. He said, if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old, that means you don't know yourself. So you know all this complicated theory or philosophy, and you can't explain that to a young person in a way that he or she can understand. That means you don't understand it yourself, because you complicated it too much. So this is the subject matter. Prabhupada could explain some of the most esoteric, some of the most advanced topics in a way that even the modern people of the times could fully understand it. That's realization. So we're talking about preaching according to our realization, yeah? And so that was Prabhupada's definition. And Prabhupada appreciated when we preached according to our realization. When someone asked Prabhupada one time, what should I speak? I'm supposed to give a class, what should I speak? Or if I'm doing book distribution, what should I speak? Prabhupada says, speak according to your realization. Don't speak what you haven't understood or what you haven't realized yet. And one of the first child in the ISKCON movement was, does anyone know? Saraswati. Yeah? You knew it. Yes, Saraswati. And what was Saraswati's preaching strategy? She would go on the street, she would stop people, and she would say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is little Saraswati, like Surbi. And she would go and preach. And when Prabhupada saw that, Prabhupada said, yes, this is preaching according to realization. And Prabhupada approved it, that this is correct, this is how it should be. One time Prabhupada, so generally what would happen is Prabhupada would come in the morning, he would sit in the Vyasasana, he would give class. Yeah? But sometimes he would tweak it up a little bit. So he would come, he would sit in the Vyasasana, and then he would say in the audience, he said, now you should speak. So now you speak. And so he would randomly catch people from the audience and he would ask them to speak. So, Gargamuni, you speak. Okay, Hayagriva, you speak. And so they have to stand up and they have to speak something. So one such day he was asking everyone to get up and say something. And then he pointed this one devotee, he said, now you speak. And now everyone is wondering, now what is this devotee going to speak? Why? Because that devotee doesn't read so much. And he doesn't like, he's not such a technical person, or he doesn't know like Shastra, intricate details. So everyone's wondering, what is he going to speak? So what did he do the whole day, every day? He would roll chapatis. That was his service. He was just rolling chapatis in the kitchen the whole day. So when Prabhupada asked him, now you speak, he started speaking about how to roll chapatis. He started talking about how to make the dough, what are the ingredients you put into it. And then he said, then you take the pin, then you start rolling the pin, and then you make the circle like that, and then you put it in the tawa, and then you make it, then that's how when you do it like this and like that, and then it puffs. And he spoke the full recipe, and everyone is wondering, what is he speaking? This is not relevant. And then he speaks the whole process of chapati making, and at the end of it, he says, and because, he said, as I was trying to look for this pastime to find the exact line, it was really nice, but he says in the line of, that I make these chapatis every day, and I'll make this till end of my life, because I do that to serve Krishna. And that was his realization. And Prabhupada approved of it. He said, yes, this is realization. He's speaking according to his realization. This is perfect. So, in our service, in our preaching, we speak according to our own realization. We always should. Another point that we spoke about, we should preach according to what Prabhu mentioned. Time, place, and circumstance. Yes? What works for one particular place in one particular time may not necessarily work for other places in other times, yes? So one needs to know the time, place and circumstance, and one needs to speak or preach accordingly. We just came out of, not just, it's been a while now, but when there was the COVID time, so times had completely changed. The way how we would normally have the classes, people come in, we speak. And then COVID came and everything changed. And but interestingly, devotees understood that this is not going to change anytime soon. So let's adapt to it. And so we started giving a lot of online classes. We started delivering a lot of prasadam. And it was met with a lot of success, isn't it? After 2 years of COVID and lockdown and everything, and when everything opens up, we see all of a sudden this flood of people, all these devotees who have been chanting 16 rounds that we have never seen before. And where did they all become devotees? When did you become devotees? We wonder, so many people, so many families coming, all from COVID times, like how the devotees adapted to the times and worked in a way that would inspire these people who are locked down at home. Now, is this something that we are doing in our times? No. This is something that all the acharyas have done in the past also. So one of the classic examples is Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, who was such an contemporary, who was so adapt to the times, he would have huge exhibitions with pictorial representations, dioramas, dolls, like life-sized, and they would have like all these different presentations. And sometimes he would have these in the temple, all these Krishna conscious presentations, but then, I think, was it in Mayapur, where he would, from the time when people come into because to come to Mayapur, you have to come in boats. You come to the boat, you come out of the shore, and then he would have like the two sides of the street, boats playing all kinds of karmi music. Like, it's like a mundane karmi music, but like very well presented. And so, and he would get all these upper sampradayas, not bona fide sampradaya, and musicians. He would get them, and he would get them to perform all along the way until the temple. And people are all attracted because it's such a good presentation. Even though it's mundane, even though it's material, it would attract them. And as they go, keep following the route, keep following the path, they would end up in the temple. And when they end up in the temple, it's a completely Krishna conscious presentation inside. And it became so popular, it became so big, that every day they would attract about 100,000 visitors. And it went on for a whole month. Huge preaching. So many people got attracted to Krishna consciousness. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would also interact with the Englishmen of the times, and he would dress up in the suit. We have this photo, we have seen Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's photo in this long suit and a very aristocratic looking, and before him, or even during his time, or even after his time, like, people can't wrap their heads around like a sannyasi wearing a suit, like a long suit. It's just so unheard of. It's so foreign for them to understand. So he did that. He sent his sannyasi disciples to England to go and preach. And they stayed there for 3 years. They were not successful. They had to come back at one point. But he tried. And in some very innovative, in some very creative ways, he tried to preach and share this message of Krishna consciousness according to the times. Another one is Prabhupada. Classic. Can anyone say anything that Prabhupada did that was quite adapt to the times? Something unique? Making a shop front into a temple. Yes. The matchless gifts. Yep. What else? Did Prabhupada did anything creative? Or no? Or we are not sure. What is it? What is some of the things that he did? Yeah. He gave Prabhupada gave all the initiations, the first set of initiations, and by the end of the initiations, all the initiations came inside the temple room, and the first thing they saw was like a poster there that had the 4 regulative principles. So Prabhupada gave that. He didn't give that like the first thing, you should follow the 4 regulative principles, you're not following that, you are in Maya, you're karmi, you're demon. No. You're chanting Hare Krishna, okay, let's start with something. And eventually he made it more strict and more organized, but in the beginning it wasn't like that. So yes, it's a very good example. Thank you. Anyone else? What did Prabhupada did? What Prabhupada did that was creative, that was quite adapt to the times, that worked? Why his preaching worked? What else?
He was using like modern technology.
The dictaphone. Yeah, he was using the modern technology. Yeah, the sannyasis would not have anything to do with technology before that. Yeah. He did ride in Rolls Royce. It was interesting because when Prabhupada went to US, and it's not that, okay, my Guru Maharaj asked me to preach in US, I'm going to go rock up in US and I'm going to just start giving classes. No. When Prabhupada went to US, it was interesting because I think it was Mukunda Maharaj who mentions that initial nearly 1 year or quite a few months is where Prabhupada was just constantly walking in the neighborhood areas. He would take the trains and go as far as the train go and come back, like local trains, buses. And he would see how people are doing things, what people are talking about, what people are shopping, like their mindset, their lifestyle. So Prabhupada observed everything, he saw. And he really tried to understand the whole culture and what people were about. And then, once he understood, and then once he was, he was sort of more equipped with the times, he then started speaking about Krishna consciousness. So in that way he observed, he studied. And he was, at any point, he was not naive to what's going on in the society. He was always up to date with what's going on in the modern Western society. And it's interesting because when we talk about Prabhupada, he comes from a completely different background to the kind of audience that he was preaching to. It's a completely different audience, completely different age group. It's Western society, the whole culture, the whole principles is completely different. Where Prabhupada came from very aristocratic family, belonging to the Vedic culture, Brahmana, Vaishnava family. And at least 50 years of age difference. That's a huge, that's almost like, almost older than a grandfather. It's older than a grandfather, because the grandfather of someone in 20 years would be like 60 years old, around 60, 65. So Prabhupada was older than that. And then he could connect to them and he could speak to them in a way that they feel inspired and they follow him. It's completely bewildering. But Prabhupada did that because he learned, he studied, he understood the times. And in the modern day, we do many amazing things actually. It's very interesting. The devotees always come up with these creative ideas to make Krishna consciousness relevant for the times, for the place, for the circumstances that we are trying to present to the audience that we have. Anything interesting that you can think of that we do right now that's different, adapting to the times now? So the classic Vedic style of preaching is Guru would come, he would sit on the Vyasasana, he would speak, all the students listen. All the brahmacharis would stay in the ashram with the Guru, and after 25 years they'll go get married. The classic varnashram system, Guru, disciple system. But then, how do we do it to adapt to the times that we are in, especially like in the Western world that we live in right now? We had the mantra nights. We had the mantra meditation, the kirtan nights, where we invite everyone, and then for the Hare Krishna mantra we ask them all, now let's all stand up. Let's try to move with the beat, with the rhythm. We get them to dance in the kirtan. Yeah. What else? What else that we do? The what?
Sunday love feast.
The Sunday love feast. That Prabhupada introduced that. The love feast. A very interesting concept, because the Western society, the people are used to go to like a religious center on Sunday evening. It's kind of like part of the culture. It's all right, okay, then they can come to us. We can have a love feast, where there will be same program. It's all lecture, kirtan and prasad, but just a different name for it. And the temple, Anilpa was mentioning, temple the love feast has become so big. It's like a festival now, every Saturday and Sunday evenings. So yeah. What are some of the other things, the modern tactics that you can think of? Restaurants. Yeah. We don't one time one devotee, there was a preaching program, and there was a sannyasi who gave a class, and then he asked, "What's the prasadam? Who cooked the prasadam?" He said, "Oh, we get it from the restaurant." "You get prasadam from the restaurant?" He said, "No, devotee restaurant." But the concept of restaurant, eating in the restaurant, is so far out. But then, since we want to eat in the restaurants, we have the devotee restaurants, and Melbourne has a few. And restaurants, but also the caterings. Yeah. Anything else that you can think of? There is one of the very successful way of the Western outreach is, or at least has been known as the loft preaching. The loft preaching started more so in New Zealand under the guidance of His Holiness Devamrita Swami, and it's quite interesting because it's a little ethic. It's a little, you sort of narrow stairs, you climb up the stairs, you go onto the first floor. It's kind of isolated from the rest of the town. They have the couches there, they have like these soft mats there, and they have the whole decoration, the whole scene is very homely, it's very home-like. But then we do the same thing, we do the lecture, kirtan and prasad. But because it's such an homely atmosphere, people tend to put down the guards, they relax a little bit, because it feels like I'm at home. So they're not so stressed about like being in a temple or being in a church where like someone is going to come and attack them now. It's like, oh, I'm at home, and what do you do at home? You just relax. You just kind of recline in a couch. You just kind of wait for the person who sort of turns up next to you, and you just start talking about having some normal conversations. And they think, oh, that's normal. And then while you're talking to them, and they slowly introduce to chanting, they introduce some books, Bhagavad Gita, chanting VIP. And the person says, oh yeah, okay, like, it looks like a nice person, it looks like a nice atmosphere. They make like this fancy vegan food, and it's like vegan fish and chips, and but vegan butter chicken, and it's like, oh, I like fish and chips, so I like butter chicken, but now it's all vegan, but it still tastes good, and so okay, like, you people are nice. So that whole urban outreach it's kind of just turned around and completely changed the way how we approach to the youth or of the times, especially the Western youth, and people have really adapted to it. They really like it, There's another one that I was thinking, and that was something very interesting. So the devotees are always coming up with these creative ideas, and there's one of these creative idea that one of the devotees started was a 21-day challenge. So what they do is, there's like a whole introduction talk to the 21-day challenge, where they would talk about how it's important to understand yourself, how it's important to understand that the real happiness is not in working and buying, consuming. People are like, yeah, I get that. Like, you can't be just running around whole day, and like, it can't make you happy. Yeah, I get that. And so then there's a whole presentation on that, and they said, now what we are going to do is, for next 21 days, we're going to have a program, a routine. And in that way, because it takes 21 days to build a habit. And so now we are going to build a habit by every day doing meditation for at least 10 minutes. People think, yeah, 10 minutes is doable. We're going to read a little bit of Bhagavad Gita every day. Why? Because Bhagavad Gita does talk about the self. So we'll start with the second chapter, 13th verse onwards. Everyone should read at least 15 minutes every day. Everyone, and then everything else is like, you just set your intentions, you set your goals. So the morning, you kind of report. In the evening, there's like a group, a WhatsApp group, and everyone reports to it. And every day morning, they make a little video of what they intend to do for the day. And every day in the evening, they send a message saying, oh, I did that, I did not do that. By seeing that how a community develops through that WhatsApp group, and how everyone inspires each other, and how everyone holds everyone accountable, actually, a few people, they actually started chanting 16 rounds just from that. And few people actually became devotees from that. And the 21-day challenge, and then it continues for another 21-day challenge, and it continues on. And at one point, people realized that actually, this is what I do every day when I wake up, I just set an intention for myself, I do my meditation, and I go about my day. So, a very, very interesting. So it's almost like I was just discussing with one devotee yesterday, and he was mentioning that this is like a classic modern time Gurukul in some way. Not exactly Guru school, but like more like a, because there is, in the WhatsApp group, there is a guru who is going to tell you every day, remember, you got to chant, remember, you got to read. And because people are so far away, it's going to be impossible for Guru to reach out to them in person. So they're going to just send out a video message that's less than a minute long, and everyone is inspired. And then the students are following the instructions of the Guru. And they're actually following that every day until it just becomes habit for them. Very interesting, very unique style. There is also the book distribution that was sort of revolutionized by Vaisheshika Prabhu. And during the COVID times, we had these phone call parties. Devotees would call up the people and say, oh, I understand that you must be sitting lonely, you must be sitting at home whole day, and it's so boring. I'm just reaching out to you just to ask, how are you? And the people on the other end is like, I'm good, thank you. Who are you? Who are you? Whom am I talking to? Like, I don't know who but it sounds like a nice person. And you just introduce, you make a little icebreaker, and then you tell them, what, part of like our meditation center, what we're trying to do is we're sending out some meditation books. Because you're sitting at home, you can't go out, but at least you can go in. So you can read this book, it'll inspire you. And people are like, yes. And so many people distribute, actually, so many books were distributed during COVID, they almost broke the records of distributing books before COVID. And then, devotees started distributing the whole Bhagavatam sets over the phone. And it's amazing. And it was funny, I had a list and I was going through my list and I called up this one person, a Western uni student from Melbourne Uni who was living in Canberra. And I told him when we had a discussion, and he's like, yeah, I'll get a Bhagavatam set. And he got a Bhagavatam set, he paid for it. Over the phone. He has never seen the books, he has never seen me. It's the first time that we ever spoke, and he got a whole set. So, and there are many people like that. They got the books. Interesting. Also, Vaisheshika Prabhu also introduced the weekend warriors and monthly Sankirtan festival. Back in the days, we're talking about in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where the whole temple was all about the brahmacharis. Who is living in the temple? They are like the driving force. All the services, the brahmacharis do. All the book distribution, the brahmacharis do. And if you're not in brahmachari ashram, you're basically in Maya. You're basically not part of the temple. You're kind of like a struggling devotee. But that changed. And that has changed now, that we see that that we have a congregation of 1,000 plus devotees who may be chanting 16 rounds or more. And how many brahmacharis? 9. So the proportions have changed. So then how do you adapt to that? If you still hope that the brahmacharis will drive the book distribution and they will do all the book distribution, well then it's not going to be much books going out, and there's going to be a lack of service for all the rest of the devotees. And what about the people who miss out on Krishna consciousness? So what Vaisheshika Prabhu introduced, he said, let's do once in a month where we all go out and we spend a couple of hours distributing books. Everyone go. The families, the singles, the children, everyone. Let's everyone go out. Let's spend only 2 hours. No more. Go out on the street, take a book in your hand and say, excuse me. And then see what happens. Only once in a month. Not more than once in a month. Not less than once in a month. But let's do once in a month for 2 hours every day. Let's go out and let's try and distribute books. So something that we are also going to do this Saturday, by the way. We are going to go out. We are going to do our monthly Sankirtan festival, and we are going to distribute some books for 2 hours from this Saturday. On this Saturday, we go in city and we go in suburbs, and a lot of devotees will be coming and joining in. So from young to old, everyone can come, and everyone can try and participate and distribute some books, and then we report all the scores to Prabhupada by the end of the distribution. The weekend warriors. For those devotees who are fired up, they say, no, once in a month is too less. I've been going there for a whole year. Now I want to do more. This book distribution is so good. The people are actually taking the books, they're giving donations, they're coming back to me asking questions, they're coming for the program, they want to know more, they're asking for other books. This is great. I want to know more, I want to do more. Okay, let's do every weekend then. Every Saturday evening. So there are weekend warriors, this Bhadra campaign, which starts from Gaur Purnima and finishes in Bhadra Purnima. And all the scores, all the Bhagavatams that are distributed in that 6 months of period, all gets reported as part of the Bhadra campaign, and all the offerings, all the names are offered in that Bhadra Yagya, which happens in Naimisharanya, under the guidance of Vaisheshika Prabhu. And the goal is to distribute 100,000 Bhagavatams in that 6 months gap worldwide in next few more years. So if you think about it, 100,000 Bhagavatam sets, it's huge. But then we are slowly making our way there. And for us, we have a small target, as Gopanish Prabhu mentioned a couple of classes ago, of 108 Bhagavatam sets. We have done about 62, 63 Bhagavatam sets so far. We have still a long way to go. And we are inspiring devotees, okay, go and we can all try and distribute one Bhagavatam set. If everyone does one Bhagavatam set, that's about 1,000 Bhagavatam sets. That's way more than what we have at the moment. But we can at least try, everyone can at least try for one Bhagavatam set to their friends or family. So in that way, it's a very interesting Gita marathons like that. So all this modern, we are adapting to the time and place and circumstances, and we are trying to preach according to the way how we have the current demographics. This is also interesting because when we are in these Western outreach centers, we also use the different terminology. And it's something that's true even for an Indian outreach now. It doesn't really work that way. A lot of people who consider themselves the modern people, they don't like to talk about God. They don't like to talk about Lord and surrender. So we try to modify this whole terminology a little bit, make it more relevant for them. So we don't say, now we are going to chant about God's names and we want all of you to repeat after us. No, we say, this is the mantra meditation. This is the mantra that helps us deliver our mind. It helps us connect with our deeper essence, connects us with the Supreme in a way that they can understand, that they can appreciate. We change the titles of our events. We don't call it Kirtan night, we call it the mantra meditation night. Everyone likes meditation these days, so we call it the mantra meditation night. So, we don't call, actually it's interesting also, we don't call preaching. Preaching is very, it's very strong word. People don't like it, so we call it outreach. So things like that, we adapt into the times, we adapt into the circumstances in a way that people can appreciate, and so they're not alienated from Krishna consciousness, just from how we introduce it to them. And we are not the first ones to do it, and we are not the only ones to do it. Actually, many of the other schools, the impersonal schools, the Mayavadis, they actually do it. And in some ways, they do it even better than us. So yeah, it's definitely time for us to make that adjustments. And any suggestions though? And how can we do it? Can anyone think of it? Like, how can we make that happen? How can we make it relevant for the modern times? What are some of the things that we can do? We should know what people are into, and how do we know that? By making connections with people who are not devotees, yeah? Sure. Doing yoga retreats. Yeah, but my question is, how would you understand what's relevant for the times? Because if you spend a lot of time in the temple or with the devotees, you almost disconnect of what's going on in the outside world.
Like farm retreats and farm programs, they like coming and
They like coming, yes. Yes, again, the question is, yes, that's a good point, that we have our outings or we have our retreats where we can invite people, and then when they come in, then we spend a lot of time with them where we talk to them and we listen to them. It's not that now finally he has come in, now he's going to listen to me for next 2 days and he's not going to be able to escape because in my premises. No, we actually ask them questions. We ask them, what do you do, Where do you go? What do you eat? Yeah, and we try to find out from them. Anyone else has any ideas? Any thoughts? I thought was what was one, so I did think of that point, and that is a very nice point. And one more point that I thought of was when people become devotees, when the new people become, or when we have these new devotees, this kind of like the new recruits, and these people, they're still like, they're so fresh out from the material world into Krishna consciousness, they still know exactly what goes on in the world outside, because they're so fresh from it. They still speak the same language, they still have the same mannerisms, they still have the same lifestyle. And so if you just ask them, what did you do before this? They can tell you. And they'll be more open to sharing it with you, because now that they're Krishna conscious, now that they're devotees, but then they still know what's been happening outside because they've been part of it for so long. So they can really tell us some really good ideas about how to preach according, or how to outreach according to the times. Because they exactly know, they know what's going on. So a lot of time it can happen that as soon as people become devotees, is that we want to show off our learning, that I've been around for so many years, and now that you become devotee, now you're a fresh new kid, I'm going to train you up, and I'm going to tell you what you should do. Instead of just giving all the time, if we can ask them and if we can learn from them, there are some really creative ideas that can come up from it. There's some really creative ways of outreaching that can come up from it. And so if we can team up that enthusiasm and the ideas of the new people, and the wisdom and the experience and the scriptural experience and understanding of the older devotees, if we can team that up, it's a deadly combination for Maya. It's a powerful combination because sometimes older devotees, they can get a little caught up in services, and they might not have the same enthusiasm to go out, do adventures, take risks. But the new people have that, and so you can team that up. We can back them up. It can be done we can do some really great things. So that's one thing that I could think of. And another point was what Gopal was mentioning yesterday, and that's very true, is that for all of us, we should rack our brains in thinking about and coming up with some very creative ideas on how we can outreach to people. There is no limitation to what we can do and what we can't do. There's no limitation. So you can come up with any great idea that will introduce people to Krishna consciousness, to holy name, to Prabhupada's books. It's all powerful. And last question to all of you, and it'll be good to hear from you. So, in the topic of outreach or preaching that we are talking about, what Prahlad Maharaj did, what Prabhupada did, all these great devotees did or do, what does it take? What does it require from us to outreach, to preach? What does it take? What is required of us or within us to do that service? Because it's not easy. So what is it that we need? Everyone has to contribute. I'm going to point everyone. We don't have too many people in the class, so I can ask everyone by their names. Yes. Compassion. Definitely. What else? What? Faith, yeah, we need the faith. Faith in the scriptures. Faith in the Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, yeah. Patience, a lot of patience. Yeah, for sure. Humility, yeah. Dedication, yeah. All these qualities. Something is coming. Purity. Sadhana. Our sadhana, our devotional practices on daily basis. Yes. Blessings of seniors. Yeah. Yeah, these are the points that we need. And we need all of this, and we need a lot of all of this. A little bit of compassion, a little bit of faith will not do. Because you go there with a little bit of faith and you get blown away by Maya. Because it's so powerful outside. The material world is like a big wave, And you go there with like a little boat, you get thrown away, You can't survive because it's so powerful there. So we need a lot of faith, we need a lot of dedication, we need a lot of blessings. And so we can see as we try and outreach, as we try and preach more and more, we cultivate these qualities, isn't it? Our faith gets stronger, we become more humble, definitely. One time one devotee mentioned, there was one devotee asked a question, how do I become humble? And the answer was, just go and preach. Because if you're not humble, people will make you humble. Because they won't listen to you. They will not follow your instructions. They don't care who you are and how much you're respected in the community. Whatever you are. And so that makes you humble. Correct? But then if you have that compassion where you actually want to share this knowledge, then you will constantly keep trying. And as you try more and more, and actually if you study their lives, if you study the lives of people who live this materialistic lifestyle, if you actually study them, if you ask them, when did you have a proper meal last? Like, how was your relationship with your parents? Like for devotee kids, it's like a concept that doesn't exist, like, what do you mean? Parents are always good, isn't it? They're always nice to you, isn't it? They always cook good food, isn't it? So, you can talk to some of your classmates. You can ask them, how does your house and circumstances look like? And they tell you. they tell you, and it's a mess. How is your relationships with your friends? It's a mess. It's a complete mess. When did you take shower last? It's a mess, you know. So we are trying to. So when we hear about all these details, and then when you come and dance in the Guru Puja, and when you come and have the Sunday feast, and when you associate with the devotees and have their friends there, at least some part of us should feel some compassion that what I have is so amazing and this person has literally nothing. He's like starving in the desert, you know, like he has got no food and no water, no nourishment. And that's why they're looking so drained out. So let me share some of what I have, like which is a whole lot. If I can share a little bit to them, their lives will change. And so I have everything and I don't need anything more, but maybe I can share a little bit of what I have to these persons and their lives will change. And the society will become better. And Prabhupada will be pleased and Krishna will be pleased. So, yeah, gives us some compassion when we study their lives. When we speak to them and then they challenge us and they question us, and sometimes they throw a question and then, oh, I never thought about that, let me get back to you. And we go back, then we have to now study the books. We have to listen to the lectures, we have to ask devotees. In that way our faith becomes stronger. So in that way, we develop ourselves, and that's why I think I quoted last class also, but it's really nice quote where Vaisheshika Prabhu says that we preach, we outreach, we distribute books for what it makes of us. So, and then when we have a whole community of people where everyone is trying to outreach, where everyone is trying to share this Krishna consciousness, and where everyone is trying to cultivate these qualities of a successful preacher, then you can see this community is just so enlivened. Everyone is so happy, because everyone is moving forward. They're making a progress in their individual lives, and they can see collectively there is a progress. And it makes everyone very happy. It makes everyone very satisfied. So, and when we become satisfied in that way, then we are not so much attracted to sense gratification. A successful day in book distribution, a great Harinam, after a big nice feast, you look at some of the worldly things, it's not attractive. There's nothing in it, it looks like very dry. So this is the translation here, where the classmates of Prahlad Maharaj, who took it very seriously, and they rejected the materialistic lifestyle and instructions. They just became disinterested because there was something so pleasant about Krishna consciousness in their life. So, to conclude, we have MSF, Monthly Sankirtan Festival, this Saturday. I just had to put it there somehow. And so, please take your time out and please contact one of us, myself, Gopandish Prabhu, or any one of us, and we can make arrangements so you can go out, you can distribute some books, we can share this knowledge, and in that way we can become enlivened in our Krishna consciousness. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Is there anyone has any questions or comments or corrections? Yes. We need the mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, and thank you for the nice class. Prabhuji, you mentioned how the verse says that when we are pure and follow the instructions, then our preaching becomes very effective. But we see in ourselves, we're not that pure and we're not exactly following the instructions. But we're encouraged to preach. And also Srila Prabhupada says everyone is a guru in ISKCON. So
Everyone is
a guru in ISKCON. So how do we understand this? Because until we take time to become pure, it becomes too late.
Yes. So it's like the parallel tracks. Like a railway tracks, parallel tracks, they go together. So you can't just have one. By doing the devotional service, we become pure. And the more pure we become, the more qualified we become to do the devotional service. But how else we would become pure if we didn't engage in devotional service? So it's by doing it that we become pure. So a lot of time people say, oh, I will not chant 16 rounds right now because my chanting is not very attentive. So I'm just going to chant one round. But then even those people who are chanting 16 rounds for so long, even they're still taking time to come to an attentive chanting. If you do only one round, it's like how long is it going to take for you to have an attentive chanting? So even if your chanting is not very attentive, at least theoretically we understand that chanting 16 rounds is what is required. I do that, and once I get there, then I try to make it more attentive. Similarly, okay, I'll go and preach. I'm not qualified, and that's a very good it's a very good attitude to have, because it's true. We are not qualified. We like, how much of realizations do we actually have that holy name can actually make us happy, to chant and be happy? Like, how much of realization do we have? And in our problems, in our distress, do we just chant and become happy all of a sudden? No. So we don't really have that. But because we say that and we say that and we say that and we again and again and again, even if nothing changes of the audience, at least after saying so many times, at least we might start believing in it. That yeah, maybe I should chant, because I've spoken about it so many times. That we are not the body, we are the soul. We are not the body, we are the soul. We are not the body, we are the soul. We are speaking for so many times. Finally, it dawns on us that yeah, maybe I'm not the body, I'm the soul. So in that way, we're starting to become purified through our preaching, through our efforts. So it's always, we have to always start somewhere, but then we can make the steady progress, and as we do it more and more and more, our devotion service goes deeper, our realizations become stronger, and it actually turns us into a better person. So in any case, we should, although we should be humble, we should never feel hopeless, that I'm not qualified now, how can I do this? No, just do it, and it's by doing it that you become qualified. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Someone else said, yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the wonderful class. My question was, you said to realize something is to be able to explain it properly to other people. But sometimes in book distribution, if you try to explain something to some people, they just don't seem to get it. I was trying to explain to someone about Big Bang Theory, and I asked him about, does a bomb create destruction? And he's like, I don't know, and he didn't seem to care about knowledge and like that. So then how do we try to explain to that kind of people?
So, many factors to consider. One is, of course, sometimes it's hard for a person to listen to a child, what do you know, You're still studying in the school, I've done the university, I'm double PhD and I'm masters and I'm this and that, what do you know? Are you going to teach me about Big Bang Theory? So they cannot take it because it requires certain amount of humility. And if you're listening from someone, you have to somewhat accept that there is a possibility that that person knows more, So, but unless one considers that as a possibility, one will never listen from you. So that's one problem that we can't do much about. It's just you have to wait until you get taller. Until you become more taller and taller. And then you can look at them. But until then, if they can't come to accept that, then we can still tell them something that they can accept. We can tell them that this food is the best food. They have to accept that. They can't reject that. They can say, oh yeah, that's the best food really. We can tell them this is the best music. It's fun. I always have fun every day. You should check this out too. Yeah, okay. Can't argue about that. So the point is to understand where they are at, and we have to speak according to whatever they are able to appreciate. So there was one point, and there was another point I was thinking of. Just skip my mind now. But I'll come to that if it comes. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.